Yeah. Well, for chest protectors, which don't get talked about enough, I don't think, which
I
is
agree.
such an important piece of gear, right? Yeah. So I'm just curious, what are some of your favorite chest protectors and why, and what makes them different from each other?
Um, yeah, I mean, to chest protectors, you really again kind of talk about that dual mandate with sticks, right? It's for chest protectors, it's do you want coverage or do you want mobility? And again, companies are trying to give you both to a certain extent. Now, there are some differences in terms of some most companies, a lot of companies are carrying two models of chest protectors. Again, I think Bauer actually has three this year in custom. That are trying to give you, hey, here's one that's super mobile, and here's one that has more coverage, perhaps a little bit less mobility. And again, it's kind of trying to wade through that. That's for the majority of the companies now. Um, I tried several chest protectors last year. The one that I think I was most surprised by was the Bauer 2X. I put that on, and it had been some years, a couple years since I had put on a Bauer. And Bowers were big and heavy and kind of and stiff and so when I was shocked. It was so well broken in. And it's very mobile chest protector. It was, I mean, zero break in. It's still typically what I kind of go to when I'm playing. They followed up this year with the Ultrasonic, which has a whole new elbow system, and it's really interesting kind of hinge system they have for the elbows. And it's very unique. It's hard to describe in words, but it's almost got like a plate in front of the elbow that kind of moves with it to give a little bit more. Instead of the puck, it's going to hit the inside of your elbow, hitting a crease point. It actually is a straight flat surface. But what they've done is retained, I think, the flexion of the Vapor elbows, even there, which is really amazing. So it has got some other smaller features that I think are really interesting. And I'm going to be getting one of those soon, the Ultrasonics, and I'm really excited about that. You got to talk about Warrior though, because Warrior is really interesting. They were the first ones that really looked at the elbow design, the elbow floaters, and tried to do something dramatically different. They have a mechanized kind of elbow system. They've done that again. They've updated that again for this year, and actually offer both a traditional kind of quote unquote floater and a smaller, the mechanized version, which now I think people are really getting their heads around, and it's a really kind of unique cutting edge system. I think it's almost like they've used some of the technology for player shin pads kind of in the whole arm. By really kind of suspending the arm away from the hard plastic, which I think is a really interesting and innovative concept. So I really like that as well. But again, that's really the challenge. Are you looking for size? Or are you looking for mobility? With the pros now getting really told to trim down the size of their units, and a lot of new, not new anymore, but all the rules that went into effect about a year ago. I think smaller is getting better. And I think now that the style, and this is again where I'm wading into more your area than mine, now that it seems to be that there is much less inclination for coaches to say just drop and take up as much space as possible, play the averages here. It's much more of a mobile position, a dynamic position. I think that the companies will realize, hey, we don't need that extra inch on the shoulders. You might not need that. Let's instead make it a little bit easier for him to look to his left or right or over her shoulder, things like that. And then that's going to actually provide more value in terms of the position than that extra little bit of coverage.
Well, Jaguar's the one who made that popular with his illegal shoulder pumps or whatever you want to call them.
Jaguar and Garth Snowman, I mean, they wore billboards on their shoulders, and I have a set of those, like Heaton Pro 90Z. They had like the
No way.
flare up. I've got it in my base. Again, I'm dating myself here. And they are just like, I mean, you look like every woman in the '80s with the shoulder pads, like under their jackets.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
absolutely enormous. But at the time, you're like, I don't care. I'm taking up more room.
yeah, yeah.
So you didn't mind it.
Yeah. I'm curious what you think about because you talk about that sort of that trade-off between coverage and mobility. And for me, I personally wore Vaughn chassis. I've never really liked like Vaughn stuff. I know
Mhm.
obviously a lot of guys like it, nothing bad on them, but the feel of the pad just pertaining to earlier in the conversation, just such a soft pad for me. I just couldn't really find a way into it. But I wore Vaughn Chesties for forever, and I just really loved that mobility that they had early on in their even their V1 series. Way, what are we on now? 10 or something like
Yeah,
that.
I think it is. Yeah.
I was just curious what your take is on that.
Yeah, and I'm trying to pull up as I'm talking here. I actually keep data on it's on our website. It's admittedly from last season, but we have a database. I think it's like 45 data fields on every single pro at the NHL level that plays like a minute and what they
Wow,
wear. So I'm trying to find the data
that's on your
for
website.
yes, there's a database that we maintain. And again, it's a little bit past due. We're going to update it, and the season ended, and all that.
Yeah,
And I'm trying to find my chest protector data, and it might not actually be posted, but I have it. Actually, if you download the data set, you actually can actually download the Excel and see it.
sweet.
But I believe I'm stalling because I don't want to speak out of turn here, but I'm pretty sure Vaughn has the highest market share in terms of pros.
For
And they
chest
make great
protector.
chest protectors. I mean, it's kind of fitting though, because Mike Vaughn's big thing, and he did an interview on their podcast recently, and he talked about it, which again for me it was just nerding out to no end. Talking about how one of the first things he made was a chest protector, and being able to put all of those together, all those various, the
Yeah,
arms and the shoulders. I'm sorry, the arms and the torso were separately built at that time, and really being able to come with a comprehensive unit that really started getting people's attention very quickly, and then he kind of went into the other things. It is fitting. Vaughn makes great chest protectors. I've worn Vaughn before. They do an excellent job there, and there's a reason why they have so much market share.
yeah. That's I didn't know that they actually had that majority. That's interesting to know.
Yeah, I'm
I
trying to
mean,
verify that with data here, so I hope I'm not talking out of
yeah,
turn.
don't worry. We won't hold it against you. But I mean, no, it's just I was just curious what your take is on it. But I'm curious now regarding skates. What are some of your favorite skates on the market going into the next couple of years, and why?
Yeah, and I always kind of talk about how every year there's a story. There's a story in terms of the gear and what's going to be the
Yeah.
story that year. Last year it was skate, and here's why. Because the year before, really 2 years prior, um, what was then VH, which is now owned by True, came out of what seemed to be nowhere, and all of a sudden grabbed a huge amount of market share at the NHL level. And now I think they still have like 60% of the market share. And the reason why they
Wow.
were able to do that was they figured out a way to rapidly scale customization of the boot
Right.
to the player. And anybody who has been fortunate enough to wear a custom boot immediately notices the differences. Now, there were custom skate programs with Bauer and CCM, but they were not. It wasn't as easy
Yeah.
to
Scale.
order those, and it wasn't easy. Yeah, it wasn't as scalable at the time.
Yeah.
So VH did that. True acquired them, and really not quite. I'm not talking in quite chronological order here, but
Yeah.
Bauer and CCM being who they are, being as smart as they are, saw that opportunity, and they have developed very, very robust and very excellent custom skate programs. Both, and I
Yeah.
have worn custom skates from literally all three companies, and they're all amazing and how they do it. Everything, for those that it matters, all of those custom skates are produced in Canada. And it's been pretty kind of amazing to watch. So what you're starting to see now is some guys that were in VH, a few are starting to kind of get pulled back or pulled into the other brands, because again they now are really making very competitive
Yeah.
product differences. Now, in terms of like what are the differences between the various companies, I'll give you very high level differences. If you
Sure.
would True, first of all, you have a blade width difference. So True uses a 4 millimeter blade on both of their goalie skate models. They have two models.
Hmm.
They have a one piece skate. So if you looked at guys like Carter Hutton, Anderson up until the return to play, oh gosh, who else? Jake Allen. They all use. Or Ryan Miller was the first. Use a one-piece constructed goal skate. So the blade holder and the boot are literally all one big piece, and that creates a very stiff skate
Yeah.
and allows for better power transfer.
Yeah.
They have that one piece skates, and it plays very neutral too. So the actual lean, the pitch is very flat on the foot. You feel like you're standing straight up, which is a little unusual for goalie skates.
Yeah.
Um, their two piece is really kind of following what Bauer did, and they was really cutting edge when they came out with the first Callingless skate. Following that lead, it's a boot with a skate with a blade and skate holder. It is pitched much more forward. It is taller. It is lighter than their two piece, but both of them only come in a 4 millimeter. And that boot is very, very popular. That two piece boot. So you actually see a lot of pros that actually have that now true, formerly VH boot with that Vertex Bauer Vertex holder because they want a 3 millimeter blade and they want the replaceability if they run into their post at commercial break, they can go to the bench and their equipment manager could pop off the blade and pop a new one on. So they like that
Uh,
versatility. So you see a lot of guys that have that true boot and with the Vertex holder. So that's
yeah.
when it comes to true. In terms of CCM, CCM again. I'm sorry. Let's go to Bauer.
Sure.
Bauer, they were the ones that came out with the first cowlingless skate with the first Supreme,
Yep.
and it was again one of those things that was really ahead of their time. I think people were like, "Well, that makes sense intuitively," but I bet you there's a bunch of broken toes, broken, the inside of people's feet, things like
Yeah.
that. No, none of that's happened. It was such a watershed moment in gear to have those where it is now the exception. And again, this is something I track on our database is how many guys have cowlings anymore on their skates, and the number is very few. Guys like Gibson and Dubnik, and I think there might be a couple of others, are those sole outliers. Everybody else is a cowlingless skate of some kind.
Wow. Yeah.
Price and Anderson being the other two that immediately come to mind. So that was huge. And also they came out with again that ability to take their blades off and on, which is massive. So they have a Supreme and the Vapor. They fit a little bit differently in terms of kind of how they fit to your foot and kind of how much room and how the collar of the skater are built. So there's some differences there. Again, it's gonna be a 3 millimeter blade though, typically. And then CCM came and they by their own admission were later, but what they did was they really were kind of watching the landscape, and when they wanted to enter the cowlingless skate market, they wanted to make sure that they weren't throwing something out there too early, that they had it really
Yeah.
refined. It came out with the FT2, great skate, 3 millimeter as well, and they also have a replaceable blade, but they have a different mechanism. It's actually kind of a dial screw mechanism for the blade that allows people to take off the blades as well. This year, they've come out with the AS3, and what they've done is they've also purchased step steel. So CCM purchased step steel, so now they
Oh, is that
own.
why they're doing that promo?
Yes. So
Uh,
yeah, so all of their skates now come with step steel, which is a very, very high quality steel. I have the AS3s. I actually got a pair of stock AS3s just to kind of contrast. They're super comfortable. And what's important about the AS3s, kind of going all the way back to what I was talking about, true. The boot itself is actually one big solid piece of construction. A lot of times you're building skate boots, and I'm going way in the weeds here, but it's actually like the toe and the sides and the upper and the bottom. It's all different pieces that are kind of sewn together essentially. Um, with the AS3, CCM has gone to a one piece boot construction. So again, now you're getting that stiffness on the outside. It's very soft on the inside. That stiffness on the outside, that's good that for power transfers, you're keeping that as your foot is pushing, because there's no less wobble and there's less flexion in the boot. You're keeping that impact or that force
yeah.
more intact, and it translates through the skate, so you can
Yeah.
kind of get that motion.